Hello, I'm Dr. Basil Considine. I'm here from the ACU Online Writing Center, and today we're going to talk about synthesizing sources and assessing relationships. This is one of several webinars that we offer that explore a general topic through the lens of a specific assignment, in this case from the FAMO program. If you're new to the Writing Center, we offer support services to students throughout ACU's online programs. We work with students in just about every one of those programs. You can schedule an appointment with us starting by going to my.acu.edu, and under quick links you can find a link to the Online Writing Center, and there you'll find a video that shows you how to make an appointment. You'll find a description of the different appointment types you can schedule, and also links to various other resources. You can see here I've loaded up my ACU myself, and under quick links I can just scroll down and there Online Writing Center, and this will open a new tab that brings you to the Writing Center's portal page on my ACU. And you can see that here's that video I mentioned. Here's a link for going right to the scheduling system. You can see a summary of the different appointment types, which is a good point for us to talk about those. So we offer both synchronous appointments, which are real-time ones. So if you want to talk with someone over the phone or in a Zoom session, especially if you have questions about, how do I do this thing in Word that's required for APA formatting? There would be really helpful to see the screen, so a Zoom appointment is great for that. And if you have a draft that you want feedback on, but say you're working till late in the evening, that's all right. You can schedule an 11 p.m. appointment, upload the paper before you go to bed, and then we'll look at it and send you feedback within 24 hours. That would be an asynchronous appointment, meaning you're not engaged in real time. So the process for that, again, you can watch a video, but it consists of scheduling an appointment at a particular time. If it's a real-time appointment, then you'll get a link to access Zoom to join the Zoom session, or you'll receive a phone call depending on which option you select. And if it's an asynchronous appointment, by the time that appointment time rolls around, you just need to upload your draft to the Canvas website, and then we'll review it and give you feedback. All right, back to our main presentation here. So we have many webinars on different topics, some of which you might be especially interested are listed here, but this is a small subset of the new webinars that we are offering this term. All of our webinars, however, get recorded and posted to the Writing Center website, so you can go ahead and look for any past webinars that we have, as well as ones that we've offered this term and posted the videos. Something you might be unaware of, if you scroll down on our webinars page, you'll come to the tabbed guide that you see here, and you can select a particular program and see all the courses related to that specific program where we have webinar tie-ins. Now, not all programs will have that, so there's an alphabetical catalog at the bottom that you can search. But regardless, if you're looking for something on a particular topic, we try and tag those as much as possible, including with the program code and the course number and the week of the assignment. So if you see something that you're interested in, search to see if there's some more. You'll see me referring to our APA course paper template soon. We also have a YouTube channel where we also post our webinar videos, and a blog where we explore different topics. Our main objectives today, we're going to talk about how to summarize, analyze, and synthesize experiences while writing in APA style. We'll specifically look at this FAMO 262 assignment for week 1, the Ecology of Intimate Relationships assignment. And we'll finish with a discussion of how to take the instructions, move to outline and drafting. Because we have offered several different webinars on analysis and synthesis, I'm going to point you here to some of the resources that we have, but these are just 2 of the many that we have that explore different aspects and applications of synthesis. So what is synthesis? Well, if we were in a biology lab, we'd be talking about the process by which you produce chemical compounds. You take simpler materials and you react them together to create something more complex. So you might synthesize a particular chemical or gas, might be synthesizing proteins for something. Well, in writing, it is a similar concept. We're taking information and combining it or applying it to create new meaning. And in both of these, it's not just a process of saying, oh, we put this together and you do the rest. Synthesis usually requires that there be some conditions that you set for things to start happening or to make sense. So in biology, you might need to bring the materials up to a certain temperature. You might need to dissolve them in water, perhaps, for them to be able to react. So it's not just a process of simply mixing materials most of the time. And same thing, in writing, synthesis is more than just simply summarizing information. It's about talking about the connections and the implications and how this leads to another understanding or meaning. So where to begin? Well, you start by summarizing whatever information you have. In a biology lab or a chemistry lab, this would be, okay, here are the materials we have. Here are the experimental materials that you're going to be using, the ingredients, if you will. And if you're writing about a situation of some sort that you're going to analyze and then synthesize the readings with, well, start out, tell us the big picture, like, oh, my most important relationship is, or my friend's marriage shows this. My friends Brianna and Aaron's relationship is very unhealthy. Short, succinct, gives us an idea of what you're talking about. Then, after you've given the big picture, now's the point where you follow up with key details, so we have a greater understanding of that. So if you start with the opening, here's the big picture, okay, let's go to the smaller details that help fill in the sketch of what's going on. Like, they frequently fight, although Brianna attributes this to stress. Step 2, after you've finished summarizing the situation, this is when it's helpful to start analyzing it. And depending on the length of the paper, you might be doing all of your summary first, then your analysis, then your synthesis, or you might go organically, here's the big picture, here's one piece of evidence, now it's analyzed and synthesized, and now another piece. Generally, the longer the paper, the more you break this up into back and forth, and the shorter the paper, the more you do, okay, here's this bit of information, here's the analysis, here's the synthesis. So what does that analysis mean? Well, it means things like contextualizing the information, like, oh, this author listed this as one of the defining characteristics of an intimate relationship. Or according to so-and-so, this is a sign of this thing. You can also compare the specific scenario that you are discussing with something that someone else has described, like, oh, this is similar to the self-destructive relationship scenario described by this author. Or contrast it. Unlike the characteristics of healthy relationships described by this author, this relationship has X, Y, and Z. Now, synthesis is something where a lot of people fall in the trap of they just state their insight without indicating where it comes from. So it sounds like they're just giving more summary. But if you indicate that synthesis is happening using a phrase or a word or phrase called a logical bridge, then the reader can see, oh, this is where you are adding your insight. And some of the logical bridges that suggest this are because of this, as a result, therefore, and they're used after you've presented some evidence or analysis, like, oh, Williams 2021 recommended that couples who are fighting should take a time out and see a counselor. Therefore, Aaron and Brianna should make an appointment and follow through with it. Or, Williams 2021 recommended that this thing happen. This aligns with Hans' 2020 recommendation that this happen. So you're pointing out, all right, there are two different authors recommending this. Therefore, they should do whatever that outcome is. Now, you can also use this in different ways. For example, today's students strongly benefit from XYZ, and then ground it with one or more citations. Therefore, new faculty or relationship counselors or whatever group you're identifying should do whatever the recommendation is. Simple enough? All right, well, let's talk about the specific assignment and how these things that we're discussing manifest. So we're going to specifically look at the Marriage and Family Therapy Program as the FAMO 262's Week 1 assignment, the Ecology of Intimate Relationships. And this is drawn from the Intimate Relationships course. And if we look at it, it starts with a preamble. And I'll note I have slightly reformatted the presentation, but I have not changed any of the wording of the instructions. I've just divided this into sections so we can understand the function of what's giving you background information versus what's telling you what to do. And you can see here, I've brought up the assignment page here, and we see, all right, it's that information, but it's all given on one page, as opposed to broken up into distinct functions. All right, so what's the purpose of this assignment? After completing this assignment, students will have a preliminary understanding of the basic characteristics of intimate relationships. Students will formulate how individual differences impact intimate relationships. Now, some people will just brush past this saying, okay, well, it's a preamble, it's not telling me what I have to do. But it is, in a way. Although it's not giving specific instructions, it's describing the skills that you're supposed to be able to practice. And the best way to demonstrate you can practice that is by doing them in your paper. So we'll come back to this. All right, students will have a preliminary understanding of the basic characteristics of intimate relationships and formulate how individual differences impact those. So those are two separate things that you want to make sure your paper does clearly. Now we come to the main instructions. Consider an intimate relationship with which you are familiar. This could be a relationship which you are personally involved in, or a relationship in which a close friend or relative is in. In a 300 to 400 word paper, briefly describe at least 3 characteristics that define this relationship as an intimate relationship. Use examples from the readings to support your work. Finally, briefly identify how sex differences, gender differences, personality, and self-esteem each contribute to the particular couple's relationship. Use examples to illustrate your understanding. And then follow APA guidelines. If you look at the rubric, it basically lists the things mentioned here, 3 characteristics to define the relationship, 3 examples to support those, 4 examples of individual differences, and then follow the length guidelines, follow APA style, have references and citations. Pretty straightforward. The trick here, most students actually don't have trouble doing the writing, but they have trouble doing the writing in 300 to 400 words. And that's usually because of what we call writing creep. If you don't start with an outline stating exactly what you're going to be writing about, often you end up writing things that you don't actually need or don't have to cover for this assignment. May be relevant, may be interesting, but is it what you're being graded on including? You want to make sure you do those parts first. All right, so I'm going to be using our APA course paper template. And if you're watching this on video, now's the point where I recommend that you pause the video and download this template so you can follow along, because you'll see me doing all the different functions that I talk about using the template, and you can certainly do them yourself to put that in your motor memory. So first off, the instructions do ask that you use examples from the reading. So that means, because we're following AP guidelines, you need to cite and reference those sources from which you're bringing the examples. So let's start out with the week 1 readings. So we've got the required readings from the Intimate Relationships text, which you can see I put in a little sidebar here. That's from the syllabus. That's the Miller textbook, Intimate Relationships. I'll make sure you have the current edition. And then also required resources. There's a blog post by Feuerman. There's a TED Talk video, and then some additional recommended but not required readings. So let's talk about that text. If you look at the syllabus, it gives you a lot of information that makes it easy to order the book, but is not actually supposed to be there in APA style. So the city or state information, that is no longer included in an APA reference. That was previously required in 6th edition, no longer in 7th edition because publishing has changed. And the ISBN number is very handy for ordering the exact edition of a book you want, but also not supposed to be there in an APA reference. So make sure you cross those out when you are putting together your references. As for these videos, well, the video and the blog post, it's always helpful to start with the question, what are you looking at? In this case, this happens to be a blog post. If you look at the link, it says blog. If you look at the page, it shows you various details about it, including the name of the publication. So if we look at this here, this is the first of those required resources there. And we see the Gottman Institute, that's the name of the organization whose blog this is. If we look at the link, it even says blog there. All right, we got the title, we've got the author. We don't include doctor. We're going to abbreviate the first name, Marnie, and you don't include the initials there for different degrees and licensures. So this is called Your Attachment Style Influences the Success of Your Relationship. It's a blog post, and it's posted on the Gottman Institute website. So let's take a look. Well, how should it be formatted? Well, if you don't have a copy of the APA Style Manual, there's a website called APA Style Central that's maintained by the APA editors, and it describes exactly how to do this. And you should end up with this, where we see we've got the last name, the initial, year, comma, month and day. The title of the post is Your Attachment Style Influences the Success of Your Relationship, written in sentence case. The title of the organization that has this blog, the Gottman Institute, that is italicized. It's a proper noun, so it's in title case. And we have a link there. Now, something you might notice is that there's not a note besides the link there saying in the reference that it's a blog entry. That's a change from APA 6 to APA 7. In APA 6, you would have included in square brackets blog post, but in APA 7, there's so much content, including formal professional content like this, that is published in blog formats that it's no longer considered something that you need to point out. So what about that next one? Well, that's a TED Talk. But if we look at where that link leads, that's actually taking you to a YouTube video. So we cite it as a YouTube video, even though it's a TED Talk. We follow the guidelines, which are, again, listed in the APA 7 manual and on APA Style Central. And we have a couple pieces of information. Now let's take a look at the website and see where this all comes from. So the author field in a reference entry takes the channel name. That's this text I have highlighted here, TEDx Talks. Whatever that is there, you put in the author field. Sometimes it follows weird capitalization. You use whatever the capitalization here is because that's the author here. Now, for the title of the video itself, it's whatever text is here in the title field for that. So The Science of Love, vertical line, John Gottman, vertical line, TEDx Venice speech. Yes, some videos have a lot of other stuff there, so it reads a little bit odd, but we treat that as the title for whatever YouTube video you're citing and referencing. And we see, okay, well, we need to convert that into sentence case. So John Gottman, proper noun, that stays capitalized. TEDx Venice speech, proper noun, stays capitalized that way. But Science of Love, that's in sentence case. And you'll see that because this is a YouTube video, we have that square bracket note saying it's a video, then YouTube, that's the platform this is published on, and then the link to the video. Now, when you're outlining, do keep in mind this is a short paper. It's only about a page and a half's worth of content, not counting the cover page or the references section. So you really want to make sure that you do all the things that you need to and not write about things that you don't that will just take up space and make it hard to do the things you need to. So you want to be very concise. Conciseness is a general virtue in APA style, but especially in a short paper like that. So when you're citing the literature, don't give us what I have marked in the bad. In the seminal article, Your Attachment Style Influences the Success of Your Relationship, Dr. Barney Feuerman, 2017, argued convincingly that, yeah, that is way more information than is needed. And one of the ways to do that is we can look at this and say, okay, what information is either a distracting detail that just doesn't help the argument, or is covered by the reference entry that this citation keys to. Okay, the fact that it's a seminal article, not relevant to the argument here. The title of it, you can look that up in the references list. The fact that she's a doctor, not important here. First name, we only need the initial, and that's in the reference list. So you can see all of that text that's crossed out is not necessary. It makes it wordy without adding important meaning. And that's important meaning to the specific argument you're making in this paper. So you could cut that down to something like, according to Feuerman 2017, anxious attachment is characterized by. So we've got that signal phrase saying that's where the information is coming from. But you can also, in most cases, by focusing on the idea, just have a parenthetical author date citation. And so while it's not wrong to have Feuerman 2017 here, you can see that shifting it to the format under the better here, that lets you take out 2 words. So and then as you're doing this, as you're giving examples, be as specific as possible. Include only the most relevant details and make sure that you are sticking to what the instructions ask you to do. Now it's at this point that we should take a trip over to our template. Now I have here a blank copy of our APA course paper template, and you can see that there are fields that are prepared for you to fill in your information here. We've already added things like the page numbers with the right margins, the right spacing, and things like that. Make sure to have your title at the start of this page, and because this is a short paper, we're probably not going to have any subheadings in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out, and then also go ahead and clear out these placeholder references. So the first thing I recommend doing is pasting in the assignment instructions, because this will give you a starting point to look at this and say, okay, what is preliminaries and what is things that I should use to build my outline. And here we see, okay, describe at least 3 characteristics. Okay, so even without doing any of the reading, we know, all right, there's going to be characteristic 1, 2, and 3. Examples to support your work. Okay, so besides listing it, we know that each one of these will have an example from the reading. And when you've taken care of something on the outline, I would recommend using the crossout tool so that you know, okay, I've added that here already. It's all on my list to do in detail. In this case, we have a list of things that should be discussed. The 4 items here. And so you can break that into separate items here. And then you know there's going to be a conclusion of some sort. All right, so just looking at this, if we were to turn each of these into a sentence, we're going to have most of a page already. And for something that's 300 to 400 words, and by the way, a double-spaced page, Times New Roman font, 1-inch margins, 12-point font, that's going to be around 250 pages. So this is a little over to about 1.5 pages. This is going to go by fast. And so you can really keep on track by making this list and making sure that you then go through and explain these and say, yes, examples to illustrate. Now, as far as keeping track of this, some people find it helpful to take the original instructions and to bold them or highlight them so that they can just see a clear difference between what they're filling in and what the originals were. So here I might start out say, Now, how much you put yourself into this and choose to mention your role, that's partly a matter of what helps give more understanding to the reader versus what is distracting. So I could word this instead as something along the lines of, oh, Maria and Evan are two married friends of mine who have struggled with blah, blah, blah. Nothing wrong with that, and that kind of places them more central. A lot of people like that because it gives a certain formality and because the I statement, while not wrong, is for some people a little distracting. I'll leave it up to you, but you can use I statements in APA style. That's not something that you're prohibited from doing at all. And in many cases, it would be helpful to use I statements to explain something. For example, you might say, now, if this was a sentence you were writing, Maria has often mentioned to me that she does not like being expected to clean the house just because she's female. The to me shows how you know it. Oh, she said this to you. All right. Now, it's not just your giving these examples here, but also making reference to the reading. So what does, for example, the course text, Intimate Relationships, what does the author of that say? Now, if you are looking at the outline and you're looking at the readings that are required here, we can see that this might guide where you go looking for those details first, because we see, okay, for this week, building blocks of relationships might be helpful. Attachment style, that can definitely come up on that list for giving examples. And, the recommended readings have a few things there too. So by preparing your outline first, you can give yourself a list of things to go looking for. So when you come to the reading that defines characteristics of an intimate relationship, well, list some of them here that you see or don't see in the relationship. And then you are primed to fill this in as you do the reading, rather than having to do a separate step to do the reading and then look at what you need, and then go back and do the reading again. That is about all the time we have for today, so let's finish with a brief recap of what we've discussed today. So we started out with a discussion of how to summarize, analyze, and synthesize experiences, including the language or phrasing that explains that you're doing these different tasks. We talked about in particular, how to summarize concisely. We explored the FAMO 262 Week 1 Assignment 1, Ecology of Intimate Relationships, and how to go from those instructions to describing the elements that you'll write in your paper in outline form. Now, let's finish just by taking a look back at one key part of the instructions. Students will have a preliminary understanding of the basic characteristics of intimate relationships. Students will formulate how individual differences impact intimate relationships. If you come to the conclusion and you think, well, what should I write about now? This second sentence here in the purpose is a great one. So as the paper asks you to list some characteristics in the reading, to discuss them, to identify some things that happen in the relationship you're describing, and also, with this last part, the formulate how individual differences impact intimate relationships. Okay, so beyond just what you're seeing in this particular relationship you're choosing to describe, how does this manifest more broadly? What truths, insights, or guidelines can you derive? And that might be as simple as, okay, well, this is a major difference, or this is one that can be overcome with this, or these factors are super important. Perhaps you're describing a relationship you're familiar with that is frankly a train wreck, where there are major incompatibility issues that have been known for a long time, but they're still pursuing it anyway. I'm not saying that's wrong, but it doesn't make it easy, and that's definitely the kind of thing that you can write about when you're describing in summation, in your conclusion, how individual differences impact intimate relationships. If you have any additional questions, you are more than welcome to contact us at the Writing Center. You can send us an email at onlinewritingcenter@acu.edu. You can schedule an appointment, and when you send us your draft and such, include any specific questions or requests for comments. And of course, you can explore the Online Writing Center website, where you can grab a copy of our APA course paper template, browse sample papers, blog posts on specific topics, as well as a complete catalog of webinars. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of the day.